I'd like to welcome you all to our Cobb County District 2 Commission Forum. I know that it's sometimes hard to get any place at 6:30 p.m. here in Atlanta. So thank you guys for making it. I know the traffic is always a problem here in Atlanta. But I want to thank you all for coming. This is a project forum that's been put on by several organizations that are listed up here. So I want to thank all those organizations. And then also people who have so graciously allowed us to be here, the Boy Scouts of America. So let's give them a round of applause. So once again, I would like to thank you all and turn it over to. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. How are you all today? Great. My name is Tanya Robinson, and I'm actually representing two of the organizations up there. One being the Sierra Club. I'm an executive committee member, so the Sierra Club members raise your hands. And also a member of the Marietta Roswell Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated Social Action Committee. So all my sorors of Delta, wave your hands. And I'm here to just give you a little brief civic session. So we're going to learn more about the candidate, but then we have to take action, right, and actually go out and vote. So there's some information that's out in the front where you register. First and foremost, absentee balloting is still available. So if you need to absentee vote, you can apply. We have applications out at the registration. And that deadline is Friday, January 31st. Okay, you need to speak into the mic. That deadline is Friday, January 31st for absentee voting. So you can fill out an application, get it into the Cobb County Elections Office, fax it in, email it in, or you can actually fill out an application or request one online. Advance voting actually starts this Saturday, February 1st. We also have some information for you about that. Advance voting will occur February 1st, Saturday through Friday, February 7th. Saturday voting hours are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sunday hours are noon to 5. And Monday through Friday, February 3rd through the 7th will be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We have 4 advanced voting locations available for you throughout the county, 2 in District 2 and 2 in District 4. The 2 in District 2 will be the main office on Roswell Street near the Big Chicken, and then the Smyrna Community Center. The 2 in District 4 are the South Cobb Community Center and the Old Clarkdale Park Community Center in Mableton and Austell, respectively. Now, you can vote at any of those locations during the early voting period, anywhere you'd like to vote. There will be no voting on Saturday, February 8th through Monday, February 10th, but you can vote on the last day, which will be Election Day on February 11th, and you will have to vote at your assigned precinct. So please contact the Cobb County Elections Office or go to the Secretary of State's My Voter page at mvp.sos.ga.gov to find your location. And the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Tuesday, February 11th. You can also bring your absentee ballots to the elections office by 7 p.m. on Tuesday. And there will be drop boxes for absentee ballots at each of the advanced voting locations. We also have copies of the sample ballot for District 2 at the registration. So we have our Republican candidate and our Democratic candidate, so you can take a look at who you will be voting. Thank you. So without further ado, we're going to get to the main event. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce our moderator, Alicia Thomas Searcy. She's a national thought leader in politics and education. She is co-host of the Learning Curve podcast, a political analyst on WAOK Radio, and is a regular panelist on Fox 5's Georgia Game. At age 23, Searcy was elected to the Georgia House of Representatives and was the first African-American elected from Cobb County. Some of her professional roles include superintendent of schools, nonprofit executive, and entrepreneur. A trailblazer, wife, educator, mom, and public servant, Circe has dedicated her life to service. She's a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and serves on several boards, including the Joseph Lowry Institute and Georgia First, and is a paid life member of the NAACP. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Alicia Thomas Circe. And I'd like to recognize any elected officials that are in the room. If you would please stand.
Good evening, everybody. What an exciting night to be together, right? I want you to do me a favor. I want you to take a moment to look around the room. Take a second, look around the room. It's a beautiful sight. The school. We see young, not so young. A lot of diversity in the room in a lot of different ways. And I think that's a beautiful thing because that's what Cobb County is, right? And on a night like this, in a moment like this, it's so important for us to come together. Whether we are of different parties, different political groups, if we are from, some of us are from different parts of the county. It's so powerful to look across this room and be reminded of how we can come together across all different lines, right? For one purpose, and that is to ensure that we are moving forward as a county. Can I get an amen on that? I know we're not in church, but and applause. Afraid about what I was going to say, weren't you? Don't be afraid. It's going to be a good night. I know that there's a lot going on in our country, but what happens in other places doesn't have to dictate what happens in Cobb County. And we can demonstrate tonight, and the work that we do in government, whether it's local or state, that we can work together. So I want to begin thanking the organizations, and I'll list you a little bit later, for making this event happen, for bringing all of us together. These are all nonpartisan groups who understand the power of the vote and the power of community. And so together they've put this forum together so that we can hear from these candidates this evening. And so thank you for the leadership of all of the organizations who are involved. I want to give a special shout out. One of our leaders of one of the organizations is celebrating his birthday tonight. Brother Jesse, let's say happy birthday to you. And when you are here at a political forum at your birthday, because I wouldn't have been here if it was my birthday. Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your leadership. And so again, I want to welcome you to the Cobb County District 2 Commissioner Candidate Forum. Please note that all candidates were invited tonight. And so you may not see all of them on the stage, but know that every single one of them was invited. So I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to talk about how the evening is going to go. Our candidates have already been given these directions, as well as some of the questions. There'll be some that will come from you, but some have already been identified. They will have 3 minutes. Candidates, I think the paperwork you got said 5, but I'm going to exercise some moderator privilege and reduce that to 3 because we don't want to hear y'all talking about it. Just kidding. But you know, we want to hear the questions, right? We want to hear from you. We want to talk about the issues. And I think 3 minutes is ample time for them to talk about their vision and who they are. And so we're going to reduce that to 3 minutes. And then we're going to have, as I mentioned, a few questions that they've been provided. And then we're going to open up for questions from the audience. I want to make sure that you know a few things for the audience. Number one, please make sure you have your phones on silent or turned all the way off. That goes for any beeping watches or any of the other technology we have going on tonight. We want to make sure that we treat all of our candidates fairly. As I mentioned, these are nonpartisan groups hosting this. So no one here, none of the organizations have a candidate that they are supporting. And so we want to be respectful and treat all of them with fairness. Please, no clapping, cheering, or calling out, with the exception of after closing statements. Of course, you can clap for all candidates. You are encouraged to submit questions on the index cards. And what will happen is when you write that question down, someone will grab it from you, I will get it, and then I will use my discernment to ask you questions. And so if you want your question asked, I would encourage you to be thoughtful about what that question is, make sure it's not personal, make sure there are no attacks involved, and that it's fair and respectful. The questions must be addressed to all candidates, and they must apply to issues or qualifications to this particular office. If you need another index card, just raise your hand. One of our amazing community attendants will pass that out to you. And I'll read as many questions as I can. And so please, of course, keep your questions short. So I think it's time for us to get started. Are you ready to welcome the candidates over there? Yeah. Welcome to the stage, Eric Allen, former state representative. Come on, let's give him a better. Good evening, gentlemen. We are excited to have you. I'm going to ask you to begin with your 3-minute opening remarks. We'll start with you, Mr. Allen.
Well, thank you, everybody. Is it on now? All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. I know you could have been a lot of other places on Wednesday night in February. Glad the weather cooperated. We're glad that you see it. Not robbery to be here to be civically engaged in this process of the special election. My name is Eric Allen. I'm a former legislator, former chair of the Cobb County Democracy Committee, former chair of the Cobb County Legislative Delegation. This is my wife and my daughter. They're my wife. Tamika Allen, Elise Allen. When I first started on this journey, 2014, the first time I was on the ballot, it was because of it. Because I envisioned a community where we all thrive, we're all safe, and we all have a role, all have a part to play. And that's really the values in which I aspire. When you think about being engaged and being active, that's part of the job. Whether it's being a community activist like most of the people in this room, whether it's being an elected official or anything else. And I'm going to speak through some of these because instead of 5 minutes, I've got 3. I want to get to the important part. And that's standing up for what matters. We got to make sure that in this city, in the county commission, in the state legislature, anywhere else, we're standing up for the things that matter. A lot of you may know me from the fight for stereogenics. That was a big fight. And those were the things, that was the thing that mattered. I was fortunate enough to be able to appoint members of the Board of Elections that gave Cobb County Sunday voting for the first time in Cobb County's history. Access to the ballot matters. But it's not just about the issues. I want to make sure everybody understands. It's not just about issues, it's about values. Values drive those issues. Issues come and go. And for a point of personal privilege for about 30 seconds, I just want to say, it's more relevant right now than we've seen in a long time. Please look out for each other. People are anxious. People are nervous. Whether it's you're illegal, and I use the word intentionally, whether you're a legal immigrant worried about being swept up and your kids being orphaned, or you're running a nonprofit worried about funding being frozen. Be mindful, care for your neighbors. It's about values. These are the values that I think are important. Housing. Everyone deserves the opportunity to be housed and to have the American dream, the upward mobility of housing. We must tackle that issue. Mobility. This is a personal and a professional issue. Not only do we deserve to be able to move around as we need without resistance, organizations and corporations in this area need to be able to hire the best talent that can get to them in the region, not just with transportation Monday through Friday. Also, physical and environmental safety, we talked about that a few minutes ago. Smart economic development. You probably heard a lot about taxes today. Taxes are one portion, but growing the base is the other. We have to develop smartly. If we're going to continue to thrive as a community, we've got to grow smart and all be engaged in that process, and then making sure we keep taxes low and our service quality high in Cobb County. I look forward to talking about this more as we get through the conversation.
Thank you. One thing I forgot to say to our candidates is that we have timekeepers. And so you will get a notification by their raising of their papers to know how much time you have left. So just making sure you know that the audience is there as well, that we have some wonderful people up here that can take the time. Dr. Howard.
Good evening. How are y'all doing? I do not have the perfect words to say. I really don't. All I know is that I really, truly appreciate 73% of the former district students that chose our campaign to represent Cobb County. It's not that we did everything perfect, we didn't have the perfect words to say, but perfect words to say we did something that I think a lot of people very good. And to listen. And I'm not talking about listening to just very powerful political groups. There are a lot of them with very deep pockets. But I'm talking about individuals who aren't part of a civic group. I'm talking about these phone calls to 80-year-olds, to 100-year-olds, I talked to the other day, to teenagers who just are voting for the first time, listening to those concerns. And what strikes me is that the concerns for everyday folks who are not part of these very powerful groups become very simple. They want to be safe, and they want to be able to build a life for themselves. We're talking about economic development. These are great guys. They're going to bring something positive to the table. But uniquely, I am a business owner and an employer. There's nobody else on the Cobb Commission that has that background that I bring to the table. Again, I don't bring everything, but I do bring something that I think will be good for the collective group. Okay, and not everybody has that experience working with residential, but also commercial real estate. We bring that to the table because it's a real thing. And if you work on commercial real estate or in any kind of really, you understand those ups and downs that Cobb has had over the last 4, 8, 12 weeks. I raised my family here, go to school here, we live, we work, we do all the things here just like you. But I want to listen to what you have to say. I want to learn from you and get even better. And that's what you're going to hear tonight about even better outcome. Thank you.
This thing on? I really want to talk about unifying people. The more I talk to people, I keep hearing one thing, several parties. One is that I'm not Democrat enough. One is that I'm not Republican enough. When I talk to people one-on-one, you know what they do? They giggle and they go, God, you're just like that. We've become so polarized. Everybody gets in their camp. Everybody gets in their tribe. We've forgotten the way to talk to our friends and neighbors who are of different political persuasions. I am not for the politics of division. Whether it be from ethnicity, gender, sexual preference, I don't care. I want to bring people together and I want to work together. I've been doing the last several years, I've probably gone to 90% of the BOC meetings. I've probably gone to more than that with the MSPLOS, the stormwater fee, all that. I fought to keep our tax bill low. I've done this with my own time, my own energy. I don't need a paycheck. I don't need a title. I'm gonna keep doing it whether I win or lose. I'd rather win. But I'll do it, win or lose. I'll keep fighting for y'all. But y'all are me. You know, I'm made by the people. I'm of the people. I am just like you. I am the people. And all I want us to do is come together. Let's make sure that we understand one another. Let's don't talk past each other. We all have different views. I've got friends on both sides of the aisle, and we're able to talk about politics without getting angry. We just talk. I can actually talk about religion with most of my friends too. You know, we're different persuasions of that too. But we've lost that art. We've got to figure out a way to get ourselves back together, because anybody that's ever oared the road and had one oar and the person on the other side has another one, if you don't oar together and row together, then all you do is go in circles. And that's where we kind of are now. I'm for fiscal responsibility. I'm a social moderate. I fought many, like I said, I fought many of the tax increases that are coming. You know, this HB 581 is bad. I figure that affordable housing is really interesting, a really interesting conversation. The problem is nobody will state what that number is. What is affordable rent? What is an affordable mortgage? Just keep calling buzzwords. Affordable entertainment. You got to post some numbers. I'm a retired general contractor. Believe me, I know what it costs to build something. So anyway, I'm here just to try to earn your vote. And I hope that I can. You know, my beautiful wife is with me tonight. We've got a blended family, 8 grandkids, you know, our own kids. You know, we love Marietta. We love Cobb County. I've been here over 30 years. I've got a business here. We still have one business here. I want to earn your vote. I'm not asking you to give me anything. I'll earn your vote. Check out my website, TracyStevenson.com. It's 3 minutes. Doesn't give me enough time to go into a tremendous amount of detail. So shameless advertising. Thank you.
Thank you. So all of our candidates talked about their families and their spouses. Mine is not here tonight, so I need you all to do me a favor. My husband just had surgery. He's watching. I need everybody on the count of 3 to say, "Hi, Carlos." Y'all got me? Yeah. We're a community, so that's what we're about to do. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Hi.
Thank you. I'm gonna get so many points when I get home. Thank you for those opening remarks. I love that we have such a diverse group of people and their approach to leadership and to service. And I love when we have good options to vote for. So we thank you for that. So it's time to jump into the first couple of questions. And so the first one is, what is your vision for sustainability and environmental protection in District 2? More specifically, what do you think your role as commissioner is regarding monitoring, supervising, or interacting with Georgia Power regarding the dewatering of the coal ash ponds at Plant McDonough? That's a really specific question. And I'm gonna start with you, Mr. Power.
That is a very specific question. You're gonna learn something about me when we have something like this. I'm somebody who appreciates nuance. You know, I'm somebody that appreciates the idea of an approach. I've been in this game long enough to realize that when you listen too close to one side, you get very lopsided opinion. But everyone is going to know when they interact with me as commissioner that the environment absolutely matters. But guess what? 2 things can be true. We also have to find constructive ways to build, safe ways to build, and do it in a way that we can all work together. Our economy has to make sure it's thriving. We can't say we want a safe community if we can't afford police officers and firefighters, and we can't afford to have a staff to even hold Georgia Power and others accountable. So we have to find that unique approach where we find a win-win, where we're being safe and good stewards of God's earth, but also moving forward in a respectful way, in a productive way.
That's a question I didn't expect. But ultimately, I think our case is really. It came on last time. Thank you, technical difficult as it. But it's a very technical question. Because it's specifically you're asking about what to do with the leftover junk from the coal plant. All right, they basically put it in a dry field. They put liners down, they do all that, but it still contaminates the environment. There's no magic answer for that. It is ultimately the responsibility of the utility, which means we'll end up paying for it somehow in higher bills or whatever. The local two that just came online of the new nuclear facility of the city of Marietta, we were part of MEAG and invested in that. So that's one of the things that makes it better. There's not going to be really any more reliable, sustainable power than nuclear power going forward. As much as we would like wind and solar to be the magic answer, we're technologically just not there yet. But what's going to need to happen, to digress, is the utility's going to have to clean up the mess they made. Yeah, we don't make it because we use the power, but also the coal plants don't come online very often. You know, they're just in high peak season during summer. So we got to work on that to try to figure out what do you do with all this ash. It's in a pond, it's just laying there. It needs to be put together in a safer way. I'm not an engineer that specializes in that, but I've built a lot of things, dug a lot of holes, dug a lot of holes. So that's the containment of what's there is what's important. We're going to have to do it in a viable way that makes sense and is physically responsible.
All right, so my friends in Vinings know that I always say you got coal ash in the backyard. It's ethylene oxide in the front yard. It's really not a big cluster down there with all the environmental stuff that's going on. The coal ash ponds are an issue. They have been an issue in other states. Look what happened in North Carolina, other places. This is so close to the Chattahoochee River. It is extremely dangerous. This is going to take vigilance in all three layers of government, federal, state, and local. When you think about, how these things are managed, the federal government is basically the regulator. So they regulate. State government operates. How do they operate? But local government is where they locate. So what we've got to do is be really vigilant as a county commission of what we let into our community. We can talk about development all day long, but they've got to be a sustainable. They need to want to be a healthy partner to the residents of Cobb County, not just a physical partner and wanting to take and spend money. So we need to be very, very careful. This is an issue I've been keeping track of for a long time. But we've got coal ash on one side of Chattahoochee, we got ethylene oxide on the other side of Chattahoochee, and we need to figure out how we can be more sustainable, encourage recycling, encourage natural gas vehicles. The coal plant does not use coal anymore, just for reference. It's all natural gas mostly now. Coal ash is being buried for prior use. But we got to be very vigilant about what now comes into the community, what's next. And the locate area, the locate part with the local government is where we can do the most. We've got a couple more seconds. What I mean by that is through zoning. We have a very lax high hazard zoning threshold in Cobb County. We need to work with our fire marshal, work with other leaders to make sure that we're classifying companies the right way when they come in. If they are a hazard, we need to tell the communities in which are close to them, so they know exactly what their neighbors are doing and what they are doing to them.
Thank you very much. You all have a lot of questions. I am multitasking here, listening as well as looking at all of the questions. I'm going to ask number 2 on the list that I was given. How do you plan to engage with local organizations to ensure that the diverse needs of District 2 are heard and addressed in your policies and your plans? Now, whoever wants to go first.
Well, the beauty of my situation is I'm retired. So although they call this a part-time job, as a commissioner, the only full-time job is the chair. It would be my full-time job. I do it part-time now for nothing. I'd be happy to keep doing it for nothing, to be honest with you. But that's what I would do is I'm telling I'm easy. I've got a website right now. I've had lots of people email me questions and ask me questions, and I've answered everyone. I'll make sure that as a commissioner, I will take you, go and visit every site you want to visit. I will look at every problem you've got, and I'm probably going to do monthly or bi-monthly town halls. Because I think the best way to do that is in a situation like this, where we actually bring the people, and talk to one another. I can't say I'm gonna solve all your problems, but I'm gonna listen to them. And then I have to take into account the rest of the county. Because what we do here is important to us, but also it filters out into the rest of the county. We've got to figure out a way, to spend our money correctly where everybody benefits. South Cobb is often been called, often complained about that they don't get enough of the equity in the spending. I don't know that because I'm not on the inside, but I've heard it enough to believe there's something to it. So I do believe that we need to make sure that I'll listen to you every time. I will talk to you. I will try the best I can to solve your problem. If I can't, we'll pick this thing up the chain. Not you. I'll walk with you, whatever department it is, and we'll make it happen.
So I'll answer that question in two ways. One is just being open, transparent, and accessible, what Tracy talked about, is extremely important. But the way the question was phrased about civic organizations, I'm going to piggyback on something that Howard said in his opening as well, which is it's often that we leave out interactions with people that are not affiliated with those other organizations. We have to break down the barriers of thinking you have to be associated with a group in order to have a voice. Everybody has a voice, everybody has an interest. And we need to make sure those are respected as well. I learned very early on as a legislator, town halls are a great way to communicate. Very few people take time to come to a town hall. Accessibility should not be reserved for just people who are affiliated with an organization or can come to a room at 7 p.m. on a Thursday, a random Thursday night. You've got to be out there in the community. You've got to be out there engaging with people where they are, not asking them to come to where we are. If you want to yell at me, you don't need to come to the board commission meeting. Call me, email me, text me. I want you to yell at me constantly. I want you to feel empowered to hold me accountable without having backup of a civic organization or group. So I think it's a two-way street. It's accessibility, it's openness, but it's also understanding you as an individual have just as much power as any community still.
Our civic organizations are a backbone for our county, doing great work for decades. As a member of the Rotary Club, I know what that's like. As a member of Alpha Phi, I know what that's like. Here's the point, and this is again, two things can be true. We do a really good job with our organizations. A night like tonight is exactly the approach that I would like to amplify. We're talking about collaboration of existing groups to bring even more people to the table. We have to do more of those things. But also, you heard me earlier talk about an even better Cobb. An even better approach is to do what we're doing and not just go to people in the sense of going to a fair, but the phone calls, the one-on-one phone calls. And I tell you, I've called thousands of voters personally. And the conversations that I've had with folks that said again and again, I have never heard from a candidate like this. Never directly from a candidate. And sometimes folks will bend your ear for 30 minutes. They'll say, oh yeah, because you're really quick, you don't really, oh, what? Huh? Oh, you know what? And I said, oh, I gotta sit down for this one. Because you know what? Sometimes turns into a 1 hour conversation. I might have a voter list stack this long, a lot of people that I want to call, but an hour conversation for somebody who has never spoken to a candidate or an elected official in a very intimate way, that has changed my whole approach to leadership. My whole approach. So I come with great amount of humility. There are times where I thought I knew a little something. And the more I talk to everyday people, I don't know much, but I am learning from the experiences that you have. And it's changing my life, it's changing my approach. And I think that we here at Cobb can be even better when we have those conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 3. What are your plans to improve transportation within District 2?
So Transit is a very good topic to talk about. As I said earlier, I choose to use the word mobility intentionally because I think it encompasses a lot more, because you can think of bike lanes, sidewalks, routes of roads, new roads, all these different things that we talked about. As a community, we are going to continue to grow. As I've talked to several voters, and most people talk about, I don't want to sit in my car for hours at a time. I don't want to do this. Those are things that we as a community have to remedy together. The MSPLOS lost. If you were at the last debate, I talked a lot about the MSPLOS and how I thought it was in jeopardy, only because it was very hard for most people to swallow a 30-year budget, a 30-year tax. That was a tax that, I was clear. My daughter being 9 years old, I would be voting on something that she would be paying for until she was 40. Now that was just a hard pill to swallow. However, the general SPLOS does have surpluses. We can be thinking about how we allocate that to do some of the projects that would have been in the MSPLOS. We can look at other funding sources, working with our federal grants, and federal partners to help us fund things, like the interchange in Acres Mill for express lanes. That was a collaborative between the federal government, the Cobb CID, and the county and the state. There are ways that we can address mobility, and we must address mobility. There is a breaking point that we're all going to have to be able to recruit new residents of Cobb County, but also retain the residents of Cobb County that we know we want to keep all of our neighbors here. We're going to have to address this mobility issue, but it's not a magic wand. So it's going to be an infrastructure conversation around all modalities of transportation, whether it be sidewalks, bike lanes, rapid transit, roads, all of that infrastructure has to be taken into account.
I think everybody got a sense of the scope of the mobility SPLOS and said, wow, this is a major commitment. And I think almost everyone in this room probably said, what exactly? And you would hear bits and pieces, all with billion-dollar price tags to it. And I don't know about you, but I don't think it's okay to spend billions of dollars with bits and pieces of information, fragmented and not understanding how it all works. From my conversations with everyday people, it seems like there is a willingness to commit to significantly investing here in Cobb County in our mobility, in all the different ways that you just mentioned. But we better do right by letting people know exactly what's going on. I happen to be on the transportation committee and sitting month after month after month, hearing the information from the Department of Transportation and just asking the question again and again. It's like, okay, how are we sharing this with the public? Because this is convoluted to the small group. How is this going to be shared with 800,000 people? We didn't do well at all sharing that information. And let's not pretend that we are swimming in waters full of trust. Trust is low with every institution, from our churches to our governments to even our civic organizations. So what we have to do is we have to earn trust by doing what we say. I do believe it will take significant investment, but we have to do the work to really listen, to put it out in a very transparent way, in a thoughtful way. And so we can do it. And I believe that we should go back to the drawing board, really do the hard work. Tell the hard truth that there were big holes in that last proposal. But let's go back to the drawing board. Let's do it right.
In order to talk about the MSPLOS and transit and mobility, it's got all one bite, but it's a big bite. I was against the MSPLOS, so was 62% of the voters in Cobb County. So I think I was on the correct side of it. But I was not against transit. I'm pro-transit. Right people, right reasons, right thing. Does anybody here know how much we lose on our current budget right now? Last year's budget was $29 million. We lost 80 cents on the dollar. That has now blown up to $38 billion. and we will lose 90 cents on the dollar. I'm not saying it ought to be profitable, but that's a money drain that just can't be tolerated. We've got to figure out what to do with the money we got. I propose that $38 million we've got, we try to work on the existing transit system. Anybody here know what the most expensive part of the transit system is? What do you think it is? Bus? It's the drivers. Right now, technology is moving at a rapid pace. Driverless vehicles and so forth. If you've ever been out to Phoenix, Arizona, you just walk up out of a cocktail lounge if you want to, have a few drinks and punch it on your phone. Driverless vehicle pulls up, you jump in. Different critter there. It's all gridded up. So it's a fairly simple arrangement. But the technology is right around the corner. My problem with MSPLOST from day one was we were using 20th century technology to fix a 21st century problem. So the first thing we've got to do, in my humble opinion, is take that $38 million and make it needs-based. I think I've got this on my website, where I envision it much like an EBT card. People, 3% of the people in this county don't have a vehicle or cannot drive and rely on the system 100%. Those people ought to get an EBT type card. They're working, they're doing their thing, they're doing the best they can. We need to look after those that need the help first. And with that EBT card, we can start collecting real data. We don't need to know the individuals. We need to know when somebody gets on, when they get off. We don't need to know who that is. But we need to understand where the system's working. And if that EBT card could be linked to data collection, it would give us an idea of what the heck's going on, and maybe those routes don't need to run every hour in a circle every day. Maybe the dead part of the day, we just need to pull back and go, okay, let's reapportion these assets over here during the day. I know it sounds like common sense because it is, but that needs-based plan, I'd like to see those people get it first for free. Then another conversation we ought to have. This fellow's like, John, who dressed so well, we can afford it. If he wants to drive the bus, he shouldn't be paying $250. Yeah, that's 14 years ago was the last rate hike on the bus. You know that? So what have you paid for 14 years ago, the same price as you pay now? Nothing. Now, I'm not trying to run people out of being able to use the transit by any stretch. But if we're needs-based and we build upon that with people that are doing it convenience-based, like they want to go to a ball game, parking's $20 somewhere. Anyway, I've got the red card, but I'd love to talk to anybody about this anymore. I'm very well versed in it. Thank you.
So I want to get to our final pre-prepared question. And several of you have asked about this particular topic. So I'm going to try to work in the questions and what was already provided, which is about housing. And so thinking about the diversity of District 2 and it being an economic powerhouse, how can you balance both the business and residential needs, and also include in your response how we address the affordable housing issue within the district and within the county? Whoever wants to go first.
Did you want to? Boy, this is a big question. 60 seconds or so is not going to be enough to even scratch the surface. But the first thing we have to do, we'll talk about affordable housing. Like I said earlier, we've got to identify what that number is. Can't solve for half without a few minutes. Having built a few things in my lifetime, the biggest problem I see is builder math for you. I'll just tell you, if I had $100,000 developed lot, the minimum house I would have to put on is $300,000. So that's a $400,000 out the door deal that I've got to have minimum. I'd rather have $500,000, $600,000 that unit. All right, I have to make my money too. I have to survive. So it all starts with the price of the dirt. You know, the county owns so much property. They can't even account for all of it. There's still an open records request out there to ask to account for every piece of property the county owns. I see a public-private partnership. We do special zoning, and we set aside some county land on a land lease or whatever we do to bring the price of the house down to what it could be. And I want to look towards at least 50% of that being our first responders and our Cobb County employees that cannot afford to live in the county. You know, that'll help build the neighborhood. It'll make the neighborhood survive. We won't have some of the pitfalls of some of the Habitat for Humanity. So it's that's kind of a beginning point where you just scratch that surface. Some others talk about, well, maybe we could get certain developers to set aside a certain amount for affordable housing. I get so tired of that term. What is that number? You know, is it $1,500 rent? Is it $2,000 mortgage? You know, until we know what that number is and talk about it honestly, we cannot even begin to solve the problem.
I appreciate some of the things that you mentioned, and during the election over the summer, mentioned the same kind of strategy of we gotta see what really works, and I think we should prioritize our first responders, prioritize our educators, and see if we can do it right there. Again, trust. When trust is low, we want to make sure we share with the community, share with the county that we can be good stewards of taxpayer money. If we can do right and build right for our first responders and our educators, then we can build that trust for a better investment and do those public-private partnerships that you mentioned. So I completely agree with you there. One huge issue, and this is as a former Cobb County school board member in a room with 7 total people with a $1 billion budget, very similar to what's going to happen here in the county commission. These 2 entities are like food that doesn't touch. People don't want their food to touch. Everybody's a stay in your own lane kind of mentality. But the issues are getting so significant that we have to work on collaboration. Dare I say, we do more than just do work together than we legally have to. And currently, if I'm honest, that's really what's happening between the county schools and the county government. You mentioned the amount of land. The amount of land owned by the county government and the inclusion in county schools. We're talking about, we're talking about a situation we can transform this county with proper collaboration. And so I think if we do something that is a win-win for both entities, which then is a win-win for the entire county, highlighting our teachers, our first responders, then we build the trust and we let the taxpayer, just like you know, that, hey, they're actually talking to one another. Hey, they actually used $500 million well. Maybe we can make a longer commitment to do a much bigger price tag. Where do we start? Let's look at the commercial real estate. There's so many buildings and complexes that with some creativity, it's been done in different parts of the country, we can change that model, what housing looks like. We have empty real estate. We have, you don't want to get me started about what's happening in town center and other places. We have opportunity, we have land. It is going to take some creativity. It's going to take collaboration. That's going to take a spirit of humility. And I got to lead the charge of the spirit of humility, because for those that were paying attention during the Cobb school side, it was a lot going on. But the problem is that significant that I'm ready to bury the hatchet and say, hey, let's collaborate. Let's make sure we do right by the taxpayers. Thank you.
All right, this is where I'm gonna get in trouble and get too wonky, because this is an issue that we really try to tackle with the state. And I'll tell you, first of all, there is a definition of affordable housing. Like uses as a percentage to the median income. So there is a definition. The reason I don't use the term affordable housing and I use attainable housing is because I still don't think that number is affordable. When you look at it. There are a lot of issues with what's been said. I'm gonna try to break through some of them. This district, District 2, is the only district in the state that encompasses 3 CIDs in one district. And the reason that's important to talk about all the vacancies with everything else, it can really mess up the tax digest to start taking what is commercial and making it residential, and that tax allocation not being able to be used in its current state. I know people are telling you don't care about that. It's not, but this is the realities that we have to deal with. Okay? That's number one. Number two, no one likes the term rent control. We tried that in the state of Georgia, the state house, nobody wanted to do it. The only way to make these public-private partnerships work, and this has happened in other states, is if you take developments and make them extraordinarily affordable. Okay? Then what traditionally has happened is people enter into those and then they see that they can start to flip them because you can't control the price of what they can sell it for. So if you go in and make a community and you say, all right, everybody coming in is going to only be able to get, you only have to pay $200,000 for this house. You can't control when and how they can sell it and how much they can sell it for. So within a matter of years, that community is now going to be. So it sounds like a very good novel concept, but until we can have laws and controls that regulate what someone can ask for their home, which I don't think is ever going to happen. I don't think anybody wants to be told they can only sell their house for a certain amount, then those communities become unaffordable or at the same level of the market really, really quick. That's number two. Number three, there are things that we can do locally with code that could address this issue. And I'll just give you one example, and we can talk about others. When you think about the Kennesaw State area, so this district now goes all the way up into Town Center, Kennesaw area. If you have a 4-bedroom house and you're renting it to students, you can only rent to 2 students based on Cobb County code. If we had a special rent district just for those areas that said you can rent the home to as many students as there are bedrooms and spaces to park a car, 4-bedroom house, 4 students, splitting that rent 4 ways, now you have an affordable situation for students. So we've got to be really smart. We can throw out the buzzwords, we can throw out the other things, but this is a very, very complicated issue that requires diligence, thought, and study. And there are a lot of things that have been tried across the country that we can learn from, perfect, and then innovate in our own way.
I just wanted to kind of clear up one thing. The definition Eric has spoken about is it's a broad 30% of your income. Okay, it's still not a number, it's a percentage. What is our number here? What is our number there? We need to post a number to work towards.
It's the number of metropolitan statistic areas.
Did I call it? All right, but when we get into this, one of my thoughts I couldn't really develop all the way is about a public-private partnership for county employees, first responders, teachers, is that they enter into a contract that they will retain their home for 10 years. That's all part of them getting this part. That builds a stability into the neighborhood, not just picking 10 years for conversation. That's really the problem that's happening. The Habitat for Humanity. People aren't educated on how much it costs to keep up a house. Everybody that owns a home knows that. They can afford their interest-free loan, they have trouble keeping it up. So then they get upside down, and the investor comes in, and the business starts turning around. So we have to put some restrictions on this deal. But we need to take care of our first responders, our county, our teachers. First is my thought process. Thank you.
All right. A couple of housekeeping rules. Just want to make sure that you all speak up a little bit more. We have over 50 people watching us on Zoom. Hey, y'all. So we want to make sure they can hear us. I don't think you were the one with the sound problem, but it's okay. I just want to tell everyone to make sure you speak into the mic and clearly so that everyone can hear you. I want to do a temperature check with the audience. Sometimes when you're hearing a lot of talking, I just want to see if y'all are good. So first question I want to ask is, those of you who are actually voting in this election, how many of you came in here knowing which candidate you plan to vote for? All right, put your hands down, thank you. How many of you are learning more about the candidates and helping you to form your opinion on who you're going to vote for? Very good. All right. My last question is, of the questions that have been asked so far, are these questions that are most important to you? Raise your hand if yes is the answer. Okay, okay, good. All right, just checking in, making sure we're good. Everybody's good? Thumbs up? Everybody's good? Okay. Thank you very much. All right. So now I'm going to jump into the audience questions. And when I say these are very diverse questions, they are very diverse. A couple of you, I could not read what you wrote, so sorry. We're not going to get to that one, but I want to start with a slight political question. I'm going to test this one, and depending on how the responses go, will determine if I ask some of the other slightly political questions. Because I do believe, as voters, there are certain things you want to know and you deserve to know. So I'm okay with that. But again, the tone of your question matters. And we're gonna make sure that we have decorum and respect and fairness. So again, as you're sending questions up, if you're going left field, I'm not gonna ask the question. Make sure this is done decent and order, as they say, okay? So I want to ask about campaign contributions. This came up a couple of times in the question. And I'm gonna ask for 2 minutes, timekeepers. We don't need a long explanation on this one, when y'all good. Talk about who your contributors are. And then there's a specific question around if you're receiving funds from developers, folks like that. And so if in fact you have received those funds, tell us who they are and what you think about that. What does that mean as a candidate if you are willing to receive contributions from developers or other people who have interests within Cobb County? Is that a good, fair question?
Yes.
All right.
That's a great question. I am fully invested personally. I'll start there. So I was prepared to run this race if I chose to run it. With everything going on, it had to be a really thoughtful process. My wife and I really did a lot of praying and said, okay, we're gonna go ahead and do it again. I don't know if you can really appreciate what it feels like to put your whole heart, your whole donor network. We don't have a very political donor network. Folks are giving everything are stretching. And we had a primary that we won. We had a runoff that we won. And that was a punch in the gut to say all of that money, time, energy, voters thrown out the window. So I made a decision with my wife and I were like, hey, we're not gonna go back to our donors. We're gonna self-fund this campaign and let it fall where it falls. We're gonna have $10,000 to run a campaign, we're just gonna do it. We were prepared for that. And then a couple of phone calls come in and say, hey, we kind of noticed that she got 73% of the vote. I guess we would like to help out. It's like, hey, that's great. Can help out, but just know I'm prepared to run this race, completely self-funded, and that's it. But we have been happy to have Branch Properties has been one big contributor, I think Eric as well. Maybe, playing both sides, kind of hedging their bets. I mean, like this is FanDuel or something. I don't know. Point is, hey, get more money, you may get more mailers, all of that, but everyone in my network knows, and folks that who work with me in our office and work at the school board, they know that integrity matters, and trust is nothing without character. You can have all the competency you want, but you have to have character. So I'm happy to receive business owners who believe that we can win, or we can receive some money because we got to run a campaign, but they know, and I know, and our family knows that integrity matters. Thank you.
So I kind of anticipate this question, Dave, because I've been through a couple of these. But we have a very diverse fundraising. As John said, we've gotten money from Branch Properties, from other developers. About 20% of money has come from either real estate development. In the race, we've also had a significant corporate donor base. Keep in mind, I have been running literally on the ballot every 2 years since 2014, because in the House you have to run every 2 years. I've built significant relationships with people who have invested in good governance, which I firmly believe that I can provide. So I don't think contributions are a reflection of anything other than people investing in good governance. So we've received money, as I said, from developers, from corporations, from individuals, from lawyers, and some of my former colleagues that are elected officials. So it's a very diverse pool that we've been able to raise from.
Didn't want to go quickly. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. I started off to self-fund my campaign 100%. I loaned myself $10,000. I donated myself $10,000. I picked up $6,000 or $7,000 in other donations. Every one of them is from somebody I knew personally before. Two of my biggest donors were from South Carolina, and they're just old friends of mine in the restaurant industry. They believed in me enough to do it. I have not, nor will I, to accept 1 penny of money from a developer of any way, shape, or form. Because with the UDC coming right around and potential zoning changes that's gonna carry, that is a conflict of interest just waiting to happen. Now, I believe, I'll take a man at his word, that's gotten $46,000 a month. I'll take him at his word, but these people don't expect anything in return. I'm not even for rent, much less for sale. And I'm just that guy, I'm just like you, and one of you. And I also have to ask a question, Mr. Allen, you've called me a Dino on one occasion. Okay.
We're not doing personal
I'm sorry.
attacks.
Okay. But I have never accepted a nickel from a Republican in this campaign. I don't believe you can say the same.
Yes, and again, I'm gonna remind you, no personal attacks and no individual questions. I'm gonna allow him to respond because his name was called, but we're not gonna do that after this.
I just want to say one thing. I find it a badge of honor to have been the former chair of the Cobb Democratic Committee, but still have Republicans that trust me enough to say, I'm going to invest in you for your race. I think that's the good governance people want. So I appreciate being called out for accepting money from Republicans, because I think that's what everybody in this room wants, is someone who can work across the aisle, who has the respect and the trust across the aisle to actually get things done. We've been paralyzed for way too long. Politics is not a blood sport. We have to run as a DRNR because that's what the state law requires. But we get to choose how we serve. And when you serve with integrity, you serve respecting everyone, you end up getting cross-party support. And I will die being proud of that.
I won't need a minute. I want to just clarify that I think money in politics is an important subject. And we know that love of money is a root of all evil. In politics, it is a major, major problem. And it's hard, it's kind of unfair for voters, but how do you know somebody's character from afar, from a mailer, from a phone call? It's hard to know. It is hard. And so I think that it's important that we identify that money in politics is important, but we also need money to get the message out. Anybody who's run a business knows that if you have a marketing department, it costs money very practically to talk to voters. Otherwise, you call them and say, I didn't see anything. I didn't know anything. So it's one of those, again, two things can be true, but our character is on display. And sometimes we have to look at our track record. And so, and again, everyone has to make the decision to themselves and do what's best for them. So money is important. I can only do what I can to share with voters what's on my heart and what motivates me. And that I will stand up and be unpopular when it comes to constituent groups, especially developers. Everyone can't say that.
Thank you. I want to talk about taxes. There are some folks in the room who believe that quote unquote politicians can't raise taxes. But there are needs for the county. And then there are others who believe that we spend too much of taxpayers' money in Cobb County and things need to be. So can you talk about your views on taxes? If you believe that there are unmet needs in the county, how would you pay for them? And if there are things that you would eliminate in terms of programs that taxes are paying for, what those things would be?
So I'll start off with that. Taxes, as I said, is a very touchy and difficult topic. If you think about taxes in Cobb County has the third lowest taxes in the state, sales tax perspective. Our property taxes, there has not been a millage rate since Boyce 7 years ago, but I wouldn't challenge that because Tim Lee cut the rate by the same amount that was raised, so it's pretty much stayed flat in the last couple of decades as far as the millage rate. So when you think about taxes, it's very important to keep those where they are. But the reason that you'll see more spending on our state budget on the expense side, so that's the revenue side. On the expense side is for a couple of reasons. One, our tax digest has gotten bigger. So as you grow, you start to bring in more revenue, which means you can start to increase your expenses. There's also a talk track about over the last 3 years, we've had an explosion of expenses. Let me just remind everybody what that means over the last 3 years. First of all, inflation. Secondly, the pandemic. Although you may see a lot of that curve of more expenses, remember the influx of cash that came in from the federal government over the last 3 years to address the pandemic. So it's not as clear as looking at a chart and saying, oh my God, our budget went up, we're spending more money, we're gonna tax more, we're not. Taxes stay flat, and I can tell you now, before I would vote yes on any tax increase, I would want to know that there are not programs or expenses that have outlived their usefulness. That's a process that has to continuously go on. But the narrative that Cobb County is spending more is a fact, but there are a lot of reasons why that is a fact. And having quality services and us responding to the pandemic were crucial, were critical. Inflation is something that we cannot control. We are going to be in this inflationary period for at least the next 3 to 5 years. And there's a big difference between inflation and cost. Inflation will slow. Costs are going to be where they are. It takes a lot of deflationary pressure, almost a recession, to start to see costs going down. So as we talk about taxes, we talk about budget, you got to be able to have a clear conversation about what those line items mean and make sure that we're funding the things that are relevant and important to the county, but also keeping our taxes low.
I'll be more succinct. I think that it is politically lazy to just say, I'm against this and I'm for this and just put that across the board. Again, as a business owner and an employer, I understand that there are seasons where it's time to be progressive fiscally. And then there is aggressive, so to speak. And then there's some seasons where we have to be very conservative and save our money. We have to make sure our rating is not where it needs to be. We need to pay attention to the macroeconomics, not just the microeconomics. Not everybody knows and has that lived experience because we're talking about payroll. We're talking about actual individuals who are our neighbors, our friends, who have their own families that they're trying to support. And when payroll increases, inflation is not just a number and a percentage, it's an actual thing, the actual person. That is going to take somebody who can find that balance between let me try to do right by people, but also we have to build. We have to do it. We have to grow our tax digest in the sense of bringing more money into the county. I'll give you an example. We all know that we're right across the street from the battery and all the uproar and everything that went into that process. I have lots of opinions there, but we cannot ignore, especially on the school board side, the amounts of lost money that benefited our children from people who are visiting Cobb County from other counties and other states and internationally. Our schools benefited from that special tax. We have to have vision in this county because if I ask you, what's our next big thing? And the crowd goes quiet. Because that's where vision comes in. That's where having an approach comes in. Our next big thing has to be generated, identified. We gotta fight through it, rough through it, because that's what's gonna help build more money from outside Cobb County to help pay for staff, payroll for those bus drivers, for first responders. So thank you. Time is called, but we have to put it all together. Thank you.
Taxes. I've been a proponent of not raising taxes. When you just call it a tax, our biggest problem is property taxes for homeowners. People that are lower income especially get a regressive tax on them because they rent properties. They think they don't have to worry about property tax, but that number gets passed down to them from the guy that owns the property, from their landlord. So I really am adamantly against property tax rise. The math of this is in the last 3 budget cycles, we've gone from $1 billion budget to a $1.3 billion budget. I'm pretty sure if I look around this room, I don't know who's got the upward trajectory career-wise, but I doubt your career path has taken you to a 30% increase in your income over the last 3 years. We all know that, and again, I'm not calling anybody out for being a crook, but we all know that there's waste and fraud in government that can be trimmed out. You know, Jahal runs a business, I used to run a business. You know, you look for those things. You look for, how do I make my money go further? How do I better spend the income I have? It's harder for people like us because we have to generate that income. We can't just say, Bob and Bill down the street, we'd like to raise your taxes to help us pay for that. You know, we actually have to come up with innovative ways to save money, increase our productivity, to raise our wages. That's just a fact of life. Nobody likes taxes, nobody likes the tax man. There's been songs written about it. Okay, we all know that. Are they a necessary evil? Yes. But bringing transparency to the government all the way around, where everybody can see exactly where every dollar goes, and they understand. I would like to see a more open conversation about every expenditure. I brought this up at the BOC meeting just last night. Simple things like when we're doing something for DOT, the guy will go up there, Drew will go up and he'll read a little paragraph. It's the minimum language required. And it'll involve doing, I remember one job was $600,000 with the landscape. I had to sit down and ask him later how that worked and what it was for. It made sense. But there were no graphics, there were no drawings, there was nothing for us to understand. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is going to be the second to last question. Dr. Howard, you mentioned vision. And so I want to incorporate this question here. Number one, what do you think the biggest challenge is in District 2? And the second part of that question is, what are your top 3 objectives? And I'm going to ask on behalf of the audience for the 3 of you to, I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to think about it, because I think this is probably one of the most important questions. And I think clarity is critical here. What are your top 3 objectives? What does success look like for you in 4 years? How do the people who are voting for you know that you've done what you said you were going to do? We have 3 minutes for these 2 parts. Yes, you can have 3 minutes for these 2-part questions. So the first was, what's the biggest challenge you believe District 2 faces? And the second part of that question is, what are your top 3 objectives?
I love the question. Thank you. Just far and away, the biggest challenge is our lack of trust with government and oftentimes with one another. Communities are kind of pitted against one another. Some of it is the national kind of vibe, political vibe. But we haven't done well with building trust and maintaining trust. We have a very diverse group of folks in District 2, which means that there's going to be conflict. And I am eager for us to engage in conflict with a mutual love for the county. There is a way to do that, and that's how we get even better. So when it comes to priorities, in 4 years, you're going to have, as commissioner, you're going to have more people tapped into what in the world is going on with Cobb County government ever seen. I was a part of that process in the school board. That was the people who weren't even in my post saying, hey, my mind school board members, because I didn't know what was going on, but I was listening to you. Thank you for keeping us up to date. That is what we're going to do here in Cobb County in District 2. Everybody, not just in this room, but the folks who are not even political, not halfway paying attention, they're going to actually know that there is a District 2. They're going to actually know that there is a budget, and this is what a county commissioner does. They're very smart people. They have no idea what a commissioner does. So let's start there, connecting with folks and help engage that process. Access to your government officials, your elected officials, that's number 1. Number 2, we want to make sure that we are safe. And we can't be safe without money in our county. So we have to develop our local economy in a diverse way. Not depending on one big business that can come and maybe go one day and we're all left in the cold. but diversify our portfolio to where different industries, different sectors, the small business, the big small business that can be a lot of things, the medium-sized business, the big corporations, we have to diversify that and really make that happen. And that'll protect us from major change. It'll make sure that we have cash flow in the county to be able to do the things, to make sure we are affording our first responders, our teachers on the school side. All these things are interconnected. It'll take collaboration, it's gonna take engagement. And again, I'm not gonna only have a town hall and wait for you to come to me. I'm going to call you. I'm gonna call you, and it may not be a good time to talk, but text me back, and we're gonna talk about it. In 4 years, that will be a huge development. Because when we learn from our collective group, we're gonna be an even better Cobb County. Thank you.
Yes, my hope, one big thing that I like to have is make common sense common. I know that sounds simple, but the truth is we're not talking to each other anymore. We're letting national politics get in the way. My daughter was the first woman ever made director of public works in Plano, Texas. We have this conversation about budgets and that. And what we found is that in our dialogue, the growth that they're having trouble with now, we're going to experience here. They're landlocked. You're going to have to redo properties in many ways. They're actually going to have impact fees that are re-impact fees. I'd like to see that come on board as one thing going forward. Developers don't pay their fair share on the front end. You know, they expect us to pick up pieces for the roadways, water systems, the sewer system, and tie it to developers. I'm not anti-development, but I also cannot put high density housing in a high, like especially mid-rise, in the middle of a suburban community where people bought a house 30 years ago with a basic contract with the county that said, this is what the master plan is, this is what it's going to be out here. And then all of a sudden that the rules change on rezoning, reapportionment. So we've got to figure out a way for everybody to coexist that way. We've got to work towards common sense solutions to how do we grow without displacing the people that lived here for 30 years and paid into the system. And I guess the last thing I'd like to do is find a way, like Jahan, that transparency must be much better with the government. I'm not saying anybody's doing anything illegal or anything wrong with government, but there's a lot of mistrust. And it's because, like last night, the POC meeting, it was very long presentations on the front end. It was very long, a lot of open talk from the dais. But what it wasn't was long on explanations for everything they were talking about. Like when you see stuff on consent agenda, unless you can dig down into that or on to go in and look at all the agenda items ahead of time, you don't really know what a lot of these are for. And so it breeds mistrust. And whether they're doing something wrong or not, the question is, are you seeing it? Do you feel it? Do you taste it? Do you know what's going on? Therefore, you feel good about it.
All right, so I'll answer the question with a rubric that if elected, I will account to in 4 years, which I think is the question.
First, what's the biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is the core. I think a lot of our boards and cities that we have in the state right now, some of the trickles down from federal space, but the quorum, respect, team, working together is a big challenge, especially in the first county like Cobb. But here are the three things that I think are number one, safe and clean communities. Right now, we have hundreds of jobs open in public safety. You cannot keep screaming about having safe communities. We are struggling like we are for fire police. Sheriff has gotten a lot better. These open positions, we got to have safe communities, and safe starts with staffing. We also have to have clean communities, which means shutting down stereogenics, hyper-focused on the coal ash pond, and making sure more polluters do not come into our community. So that's the safe and clean communities. The second one is develop smart. We've got to reimagine some of the assets that we have in District 2. We have the two largest malls in the county, Cumberland Mall, Town Center Mall. I saw it happen with Town Center Mall. We have to reimagine what these facilities, what this space is going to be. They are not going to be malls for the next 20 years. You gotta start thinking smartly about what that transition looks like. In that, we also have to hold slumlords accountable, whether they're residential slumlord or commercial slumlord. And we got a lot of both in Cobb County. So we need to make sure that we're developing smart, bringing in the right partners to do the right developments, but also making sure that everyone is part of that process. And I would include mobility as part of that process. Most developments also have some type of infrastructure component for transit or for ingress regress that we need to make sure we're perfecting as we go through this development. And third, we need to become a destination. And I know a lot of people don't like talking about that. We got the All-Star game over here this summer. We got the World Cup coming. We have to compete with Atlanta and become a destination. We're already winning. If you haven't heard about the major renovation going on at Cobb Galleria Center, that is going to be phenomenal to add space, to bring people in. The way that we're going to pay for our growth is like what Jahaz said. We're going to become a destination and continue to let other people come in, enjoy Cobb County, invest in Cobb County, but then they can go home. And we're going to reap the benefit and invest in ourselves by truly competing and being a destination.
Thank you. So this is the final question before you are given time to do your closing comments. There were 3 different questions that came up about the commission map issue. And so, as much as I would not like to ask this question, because I feel like we get past that, but if it's important to you as the voters, it's going to get asked. And so, can you talk about the maps? And I'm going to ask the general question. I'm going to ask that unless you disagree with what the other person said, don't repeat the same thing, right? The goal here is there are a couple people in the audience who are not clear on what happened. So someone can give, a 1 minute on what this issue was. There's also another question about how you would have voted, and your thoughts on home rules. So I think people are trying to get an understanding, right, of where you were on this issue to get a sense of how you would have handled it, given some of the controversy that we saw as a county. Did I get that right, y'all? Okay, I see some head shaking. I'm going to go with that. So that is the question I'd like you to answer, and you'll have. Can we do that in 2 minutes? Okay.
All right, well, I guess I'll go first because I know everybody's looking at me as part of that crazy process. Legislature, we did the maps. I did. I drew the maps that became the home rule maps that we had introduced in the legislature. So there was just a whole situation with that process of where the local legislative process was ignored. The majority party went around the delegation, decided to do what they wanted to do. We introduced a different map, didn't go through committee, but that was the map that was approved. The county decided to do home rule using the maps that we introduced, and that was always going to be a challenged process. I was very clear in the last forum that we had that I do support Commissioner Richardson. I do not think she should have had to have left her seat. That is not part of what we do. We elect people in these seats for 4 years, no matter what happens with reapportionment. She should not have to leave. Georgia does not have any rules on eliminating ABC or redistricting. And if we opened up that Pandora's box, the legislature could come in every year and say, give me the list of people you want drawn out of their districts and we'll get them out of the seat, regardless of who elected. So that was always a dangerous thing. However, home rule is not constitutional. The courts have now agreed with that. And I was very clear. I supported Commissioner Richardson. I support the chairwoman, but that was not the best way to approach it, in my opinion. So I always knew that we would end up back here doing this election over. I've been clear about that in the press and every time we talked about it. So no, I did not necessarily believe that it would be successful, but I did support the effort to make sure that Commissioner Richardson was not unfairly removed from her seat before her term expired.
Spoken on this multiple times for commissioners meeting. The real problem is this, it gets a little scary. all the lawfare wasn't really necessary. All the county really had to do was change their charter because that matches state law. The state law says for representatives and senators of the state, if they get drawn out during their term, they get to finish their term. Had Cobb County said, hey, we want to alter our charter, they would have submitted that to the legislature, and I'm sure that the legislature would have said, sure, that matches state law, why not? But that was not the path traveled. Lawfare was traveled instead, and that was my biggest problem with it. It cost us, I'm going to guess, somewhere $1.5 million, $2 million in legal fees. And I know that this election is costing at least $1.5 million. There was a simple answer, and we chose a path we did not chosen. And that's the problem we've had all along. I have spoken adamantly that Ms. Richardson, in the back of the room, should not have been required to be removed from her seat. The logic was there, that's the way it should have been. She should have been able to finish her term. Because what happened to her was wrong. Whether it be a Republican Congress or a Democrat Congress that passed that, it was wrong. And so she should have been able to stay. And I think that pretty much sums up where I'm at with that. That I thought that it was just a path, and a poor path was taken.
Final word on this.
Final word. I think this is where trust comes in, y'all. You can say you believe in a thing, but are you willing to pay the price? I believe in democracy. I believe that if voters elect someone for a 4-year term, there should be nothing that could be hurled at them to get them out of their seat unless there's some ethical issues and all that. We're talking, but Commissioner Richardson deserved to spend 4 years serving as commissioner. Period. What you heard was, I think she should have been able to keep her seat. But this and but that, which means that when my back's against the wall and it's hitting the fan, why do we do that? Why do we do that? Why do we do it that way? At the end of the day, we were up against tremendous legal assault and pressure all the way up to the top of the food chain here in Georgia for one reason. A Democrat won District 2 and was representing some parts of the county that folks didn't like. And I'm talking about some powerful Republican folks, okay? And I love me some Republicans at times, and I love me some Democrats at times, but guess what? This was a partisan attack. Call the thing a thing. And if you have to fight it, you fight it. Fight it. You stand on it, you pay the price. If we have some kind of legal discourse to try, the course of action, I should say, to try to keep her in her seat because she deserves it, take it. Because the consequences are too large. If someone could just come in and say, you gotta go, well, that's not when you go, well, maybe I'm good friends with someone. Oh, maybe we're all gonna run through this later, so I gotta keep cool. No, you do the right thing today. You do the right thing today, and that's the difference between me and a lot of other folks in politics. Even if people are mad and pissed off and it may cost some money, you do the right thing today. People came at this county, tried to kick out our commissioner, and Democrats went, enough of it. Character is character, capability, right? Character, that builds trust.
All right.
I can do this all day.
See, that got you quite fired up. So, first let's give our candidates a round of applause. So, to do your closing comments, I want to incorporate our final question of the night, and thanks to whoever sent this up here. It's a fun question. And that is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? And I'd like for you to incorporate that in your final 3 minutes. And we're going to start with Mr. Stevenson and correction. Of course. Gotta think of this superpower.
Can't say as I never considered a superpower. I so see that. Ultimately, I guess I would like to have superpower to bring people together. If I had anything I could do, that would be it. I live in a very harmonious household. There's very seldom any words or raised voices, and that's really important to me. That's why I've talked about it, trying to unify people, trying to get us all, we're going in the right direction, in the same direction. That's a big deal to me. So I guess that's my superpower. I'll take that. As far as closing arguments go, I think I've made the case. I'm happy to work for you full time, little or no money. I'm already doing it. I'm happy to do the job. I'm happy to help out any way I can. And in my superpower, we're working. And everybody can just call me. We can do town hall. We can have phone calls. We can do anything you like. We go meet. We go look at the site. If you've got a zoning problem. If you've got a problem with manufacturing, whatever it is, I can meet you there. I can go look at it. I'd be the most accessible commissioner you've ever had because I'm retired now. So it wouldn't be my job. It's already been my passion. Like I told you earlier, I go to 90% of the BOC meetings now, all kinds of meetings, budget meetings. I went to Ms. Cuford's civility conversation. John mentioned talking about us being a little bit more polite at BOC meetings and that. It was a good conference. So yeah, my superpower coming from that. But I'd like to bring people together. I'd like for us to all be happy. I'd like for us to be safe. I'd like to have all have physical responsibility. I think those are the things we're going to do. And I'd like to do it in the most cost-effective way. All I can do is work hard. Promise you, I'll do the best I can. I'm not perfect. God didn't make me perfect, but I'm perfectly imperfect. And I will do anything I can to earn your vote. And you'd be the happiest person in the world that I was your commissioner because I'd never say, I don't have time. Thank you.
I'll do the superhero part last, still thinking on that. But if you don't remember anything else, remember that I'm committed to the concept of eating better. When in Cobb schools in the Smyrna area, folks were just not feeling their public schools. It drove me to try to organize parents and somewhere here today. We really dug in and helped make it even better Cobb County schools. Even starting a dental practice and making very little money for a few years, and my wife was carrying us on her back financially. We had an idea of an even better practice that wasn't this type of practice or that type of practice, no matter who you were. I'm going to see everybody, everyone's going to get the red carpet treatment. Everyone's going to get the love. And it's one thing to say that, but that costs money. That costs time, that costs energy. And we made an even better practice than what folks are used to seeing in pediatric dentistry. Running for office and the idea of the school board being this kind of sleepy position where a lot of people had no idea what was going on. I was committed to make sure that you're doing it even better. When folks know what's going on, and you don't have to agree with me, but I'm going to hear what you have to say. And when I'm your commissioner, I am not going to promise you that we're going to get along. I'm not, because I guarantee you that we are going to disagree. You want to know why? Because we love Cobb County. And when you love a thing, you fight for a thing. Many of you have been in relationships and know that if you were in it, you ain't going nowhere. We're going to fight for this thing because we have a shared understanding that we love this thing. I look forward to the respectful disagreements because guess what? That's going to make me better, smarter, an even better job, right? And hopefully I can share something to help you be a little bit better. And everyone wins when that happens. Some of you have so many lived experiences that I did not live, but I want to learn. I look forward to representing you. We're going to do amazing things. We're not going to be like our 1990s Braves with an amazing team that only won championship. No. I still mad at the Yankees right now. It's still right here. No, we have a stacked lineup in Cobb County. It is time to win championships. Banners on banners on banners on banners, and everyone in the country knows that Cobb County is the place. That's what's gonna happen. We're gonna fight for that. When it comes to being a superhero, I don't know, maybe it's the idea that you can't kill me. So if you have tried, but guess what? I'm still here. And we're gonna do amazing things together. I still love you. Thank you.
All right, so I feel like the superhero question is like a beauty pageant question, let's just say real basis or something. But I'm gonna keep it real and say, the way the Powerball has been won, I wish I could miss the numbers. Yeah. That would be my superpower. So I'll keep it real and just tell you, that would be a darn good superpower. Once again, thank you all for coming and listening to us talk to you. Hopefully the conversation continues and you can talk at us and to us and we can all continue to have some collaboration. I'll close with something I've said for years, but serving in politics is my pet project. Policy, empathy, and tone. I have a record and I'm very proud of my record. What you will see in my record is that I am very sound on policy. I do what's right, even when people judge me wrongly. I will always do what's right on the policy side. I've never taken a vote in the state house that I can't explain, and I will continue to do that on the board of commissioners and always be held accountable to you with sound policy. Empathy. We have to understand this is an extremely affluent district, and this beltway of District 2. Just because it's not a problem for you doesn't mean it's not a problem. Leadership is leading with empathy, helping us understand that we are only going to rise together. We are only going to be able to be successful as we walk, not just in each other's shoes, but side by side through good, bad, and indifferent. We've got to have that empathy in what we do. And then tone. And tone I find very interesting because we've heard a lot today about coming together and all these other things. But I think I'm the only person in the chair that hasn't taken a personal attack. And I will not, because you have to live it out loud. We have to have a tone. Republicans don't donate to Democrats because of anything other than trust. So the trust is already there. It's not about going out and building. But now it's time for me to continue to talk to you, to show that policy, the empathy, the tone that can earn your vote and earn your trust over the next 4 years to be your voice of your concerns at the county.
Thank you very much. Again, let's give our candidates a round. Things to do. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. I'm going to ask for 13 more minutes of your time. Can y'all give me that? We got one thing that's not going to take 13 minutes. I know that. But all the things I need to say. You can stay. They want to see you and check you out. Well, how many of you, when you were growing up, your parents kind of dragged you to a political event? Few of you, right? Something like seeped in, and now it's in you. And so it's very powerful to have young people here tonight. We have scouts from 2 different troops, 2700 and Troop 312. And part of the goal of having them here is to integrate young people into civic engagement so they can begin to see 3 minutes of my 13 to have them come up. They have a little a game that they want to play and want to engage with the audience. And so you're going to give them those 3 or 4 minutes to do that, right? Because we care a lot about people and the future of our county, right? All right.
Thank you all for your time. And My name is Joshua Crawford. I'm a counselor here. I'm a program specialist and brand ambassador. And yes, these are some of my scouts over here. So yes, I brought them here because I want them to experience, like she said, what it is to be involved in the community. It's very important to teach the youth what's going on so they can contribute, become established citizens and become leaders of the community so they can improve it, so they can take everything that's said here and apply it to their lives to improve and help others and communicate with children because there's some things that they need to know. And my scouts wanted to speak to these candidates, asking them some simple questions, like one question at a time on their note card. They wanted to address something that they believe is on their mind, basically debate and everything. So if I can get one of my scouts to come forward so they can begin. So let's go forward. Okay. All right, this is Karina from 260. She has something she wants to say to any of the candidates. You can be good to answer the question. Karina.
Can you please describe what a county commissioner does? What describe our population?
What a county commissioner does.
Very important question.
Yeah.
And, yes, you guys can.
Yeah, asking you guys, sorry. Sorry.
This trip is incredible. Gwinnett County, right? Cobb County for the guys. And we got a chance to talk about, hey, did you know that we're not in the city limits right now? We're not in the city. And they were like, what? What do you mean we're not in the city? We are in something called unincorporated Cobb County. So just sharing the idea that levels of government, the county collects taxpayer money and it pays for services. Roads, water, police, fire. So at the end of the day, our community is supposed to be safer and well run with the taxpayer money. Commissioners help to manage that money. And we have a county manager that we put in charge to make it all. That's how it works.
What is it like to work for all these?
You said, why do you want to? Oh, what is it like to work in office? It is so much fun. I'm gonna keep doing it the way it's from. You get to meet very interesting people. You get to hear different experiences, different things, and it really helps you as a person kind of mature your thought of how you think about the world and how you play a role in shaping the way the world operates. So it's very fun, it's very engaging, and you learn.
May I give an answer as well? Sorry, I really have to, this is important, I'm sorry. Running for office is like being a pinata. You get beat down again and again and again, but if you do your job right, everybody gets a little bit of the cake.
How did you get interested in being on the board of commissioners?
Well, I think I touched on the fact that my daughter is Plano, Texas, as a director of public works. As I was angling towards retirement, she said, Dad, local politics mean more to your lifestyle and your life than national politics. And with your background, you need to get involved. And I said, gee, I gotta go to meetings and stuff. And I started attending the BFC meetings. I said, well, that's interesting. I heard a lot of people talk about some of the same things over and over again. And I said, you know, I can do this. I can get involved and I can help out. But I actually decided to run for the seat, only because I wanted to make a difference and see if I could make things better. I wanted to see if I could get everybody to work unilaterally on things and reach across the aisles and be bipartisan. So I'm what they call it. I'm a little bit like a dinosaur. I'm a blue dog Democrat. That means we're physically conservative and we're socially moderate. We're almost extinct. There's a caucus of about 4 of us in the National House of Representatives. And so that's how I got tagged a couple of different ways. Ultimately, I was just trying to serve. I want to be a servant leader. I don't want to be a leader of servants. And that's really my goal. I want to help folks.
Thank you guys so much. We do appreciate letting the scouts talk to you about these things because they really are interested in improving themselves and probably getting into this kind of debate in the future. So learning this and understanding is very important. So Jordan, come here quick. All right, we do appreciate you guys letting us speak in this debate because we really want to get involved. So as you guys can see right here, we're having a fundraiser. We're trying to get our scouts to go to Philmont and go to sea base. Some of y'all know what Philmont is. Philmont is our adventure trek, is where the scouts go out, be in nature and learn how to survive the wild and do all some cool things, and also to rank themselves up in rank membership. So we're trying to raise at least about $1,500, and so far we're at $200 right now, and we're still working on it. So if you guys would like to help contribute, you can support us by buying a camp card. This right here is a all-year camp card. This thing right here, all the stuff you can use for the whole year. So we got Williams Mexican Grill, get 10% off. You got 10% off Taco Mat, 10% off the Waffle House. Oh yes, you can lose weight for it, so they can see. You got honey baked ham. Who here likes honey baked ham? So we all love honey baked ham. So if you go get a sandwich, get it free. And we all love pizza. So if you guys have family reunions or school or stuff, you get 50% off one time, and also if you want to use it again, you get 25% off. So all these items right here are very beneficial for you to do all the things that you want to do and have fun with families and getting together. Yes. It's $10. It's only $10. And it lasts a whole year. Good, is it? Imagine how much they would say for $10 you go to the place, huh? Because I got one myself and I really enjoy it. So it is really beneficial. We be supporting the program. Yes.
Donation. What is it? If you don't want to.
We can accept donations and you can give it. Yes, we can take a donation. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. That was one. Yes. But thank you. If you might be outside in the podium, so you go out there and get haircut from us. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I think I may have maybe 4 minutes left or 5, and so I want to close and thank all of our candidates again for your participation in our democratic process. I also want to thank our scout troops, which we just did, for being such gracious hosts. To the voters, please remember the primary election is when? February 11th. Okay. Engage people who know. And so we encourage early voting, which begins on February 1st and lasts until the 7th. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Right? And we, of course, would like to thank the attendees and all of the partners. I'm going to list our partners very briefly because we want to know who's in the room. Again, we've got Troops 2900 and 312, the Atlanta Area Scouts. We've got the Cobb County Democracy Center, Cobb NAACP, Cobb Collaborative Vote Your Voice, Cobb County Chapter of the SCLC, the Sierra Club of Cobb County, Mableton Men Vote, Marietta Roswell Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Rosetta Omega Chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Can you tell I'm a member? We have Chi Gamma Chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, Omicron Lambda Chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the Crimson Political Action Committee, Southern Poverty Law Center, the People's Agenda of Georgia, and a Cimarron Affair. Can we give our We also want to thank our folks who are watching on Zoom, and we want to thank our film crew. Thank y'all. So, there was a question that was brought up to me at the very end, and I'm just going to read it, and it says, can we please tell Carlos good night? So on the count of three, I need you to join me in saying good night, Carlos. Are y'all ready? 1, 2, 3.
Good night.
Thank y'all for indulging. Again, thank you for being here this evening. Hope you learned a lot. Go vote and let's make our county great.